Well, hello friends, and welcome back, or welcome for the first time if you are new here. My name is Lori Beth, and today's video is super exciting because we are going to go over my April TBR, which is just so fun for me to do every time. I love a new TBR video. I love a new month. It's fresh. I'm a new me. I'm a new woman. Just an entirely new list of books to get lost in, and today I'm going to share those with you. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So first up on my list is a very exciting book. It is The Crimson Moth by Kristen Ciccarelli. And if you did not catch my unboxing video for my subscription boxes for February, this was featured in there where I go into great detail about how beautiful this edition actually is. So if you want to look at that, go ahead and look in the description below. I will post it there. Otherwise, this book follows our main character, whose name is Rune, who is a witch in hiding because the world that Rune lives in no longer allows for witches to exist. At one point in time, witches ruled this world that she lived in, but a revolution occurred where the humans, or non-witches of the world, basically wanted to rid this world of the witches. So ever since that has been done, being a witch in this world is illegal, and you will be discovered and purged from this world, meaning purged permanently, as in you cannot exist here. This brings in our other main character in the book, whose name is Gideon, and he is the captain of the Blood Guard, who is the group of people that actually spend their time hunting down these witches. This is supposed to be a very, very lovely story of enemies to lovers situation. The intensity of the witch and the witch hunter, I absolutely love the idea of this, and I love a story about witches in general. I love reading from a different author who can have a different perspective on witches and how these witches work in a world and how their magic system works. So I'm very, very excited to start this one. I'm going to put this at the top of my list for my April TBR. Again, that is The Crimson Moth. Next up on my April TBR is Heart of the Sun Warrior by Sue Lynn Tan. This is the sequel in the final book of the duology for Daughter of the Moon Goddess, which I read in the month of March, and I absolutely fell in love with. I was obsessed with this book. It has very quickly moved to the top of favorite reads of the year so far. And for those of you that don't know, Daughter of the Moon Goddess is a Chinese mythology story that follows our main character Xing Yin, who grew up living on the moon as the daughter of the moon goddess. And in this first book, she is basically banished from the moon down into the celestial kingdom, where she is trying to fight for the release of her mother as a prisoner on the moon. And along the way, she becomes a very educated woman, being able to study alongside the prince of the celestial kingdom. And during this journey, she learns the history of where she comes from. She learns about battle. She learns how to wield a bow and arrow, and she becomes a very skilled archer, and then also learns how to use and control her own magic as well. In my opinion, the first book ended in such a pleasing way where Xing Yin seemed very relieved and very happy, finally, after all of this time and learning and suffering to try to free her mother from being a prisoner. And we leave her back on the moon where she seems to be living her life happily ever after. Of course, something goes awry, and it appears that in book 2, some sort of mythical magic comes into play, and she is going to have to use all of the skills that she has honed to bring this duology to an epic finale. Again, I loved the first book so much. I thought it was so magical and whimsical, and I had never read any type of Chinese mythology before, so I was totally taken aback by the whimsy of it all. And I loved watching this main character, Xing Yin, be so naive in the beginning and grow into this beautiful, strong woman, like this warrior woman by the end of book 1. And I can't wait to see how she's going to go from being that woman and finishing off this duology in book 2. And next on the list, we have The Warm Hands of Ghosts by Catherine Arden. I am going to just quickly read the synopsis for you of this story. During the Great War, a combat nurse searches for her brother, believed dead in the trenches despite eerie signs that suggest otherwise. In this hauntingly beautiful historical novel with a speculative twist from the New York Times bestselling author of The Bear and the Nightingale. Laura Ivan was a revered field nurse until she was wounded and discharged from the medical corps, leaving behind a brother still fighting in Flanders. Now home in Halifax, Canada, she receives word of Freddie's death in combat, along with his personal effects. But something doesn't make sense. Determined to uncover the truth, Laura returns to Belgium as a volunteer at a private hospital. Soon after arriving, she hears whispers about haunted trenches and a strange hotelier whose wine gives soldiers the gift of oblivion. Could Freddie have escaped the battlefield only to fall prey to something or someone else? So when I first heard the synopsis of the story, I was completely drawn in by the setting of it. I love this Great War backdrop that you have. So it gives that historical fiction vibe, but then you also have a magical realism kind of coming into play as well, and also a mystery. So we have our main character who is obviously very brave and very smart and willing to do what she needs to do for those that she loves, and then getting involved in this kind of mysterious magic as well. Just sounds so up my alley, and I haven't read a ton of historical fiction, so the ones that I have read, I've always enjoyed. But because I am a fantasy girly, I think this is going to be a really, really fun one for me to read because it's going to blend two things that I really like into one book, so I'm super excited about that one. And next on my list is A Darker Shade of Magic by Miss V.E. Schwab. If you did not catch my first and faves video, I talked about how this was the first book that I ever read by V.E. Schwab, and I absolutely adored it. However, I never continued with this series. I was just in this really funky place at the time where I read it and I really liked it, but just fantasy wasn't hitting home at that point in time, so I just never went back and finished the entire series. After going through that first and faves video myself and picking this book back up and rereading through the synopsis, I was like, oh my God, I remembered how much I actually enjoyed this world, and I think now is the time. I think I'm ready because I love V.E. Schwab's writing so much. She has this ability to evoke so much emotion out of you when you are reading, and I think it is so beautifully done, and her characters are this kind of like morally gray character. You don't know if you want to like them, you don't know if you want to hate them, but you still just like them so much you can't help it at the end of the day. For those of you that do not know, this book follows our main character, Kel, who is kind of this long-lost magician in a world where there are parallel Londons. So there's red, white, and gray, and there used to be, I believe, black London as well. So Kel himself is actually a very unique magician at this point in time, where he has the ability to still travel between the Londons, whereas most people are not able to do so, and it is actually illegal to do so. Kel does work for the Empire of the main London, so Red London, and he does start to ensue on this adventure between Londons where he comes across our other main character, Delilah. And of course, the two of them start to build a relationship over the course of book one and get into many mishaps together, being able to travel through these parallel Londons together. Again, V.E. Schwab's writing is so magical and it is also emotional at the same time. So I get a lot out of reading her books. I get the fantasy and the magic that I always love, but I also feel so deeply when I'm reading these stories. Now seems like a better time than ever to go back to this world, and I can't wait to do that. And I'm hoping April is the month that I get to this book and continue on with the series. And coming up next, one of my most anticipated reads for the year is The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. I am going to read the synopsis for you guys of this one because I don't want to mess it up. So I'm going to read to you exactly what this book is about. In a shabby house on a shabby street in the new capital of Madrid, Lucia Cadaro uses scraps of magic to get through her days of endless toil as a scullion. But when her scheming mistress discovers the lump of a servant cowering in the kitchen is actually hiding a talent for little miracles, she demands Lucia use those gifts to better the family's social position. What begins as simple amusement for the bored nobility takes a perilous turn when Lucia garners the notice of Antonio Perez, the disgraced secretary of Spain's king. Still reeling from the defeat of his armada, the king is desperate for any advantage in the war against England's heretic queen, and Perez will stop at nothing to regain the king's favor. Okay, so 2 historical fictions in 1 month. Who am I, first of all? But this is a book written by Leigh Bardugo. And again, if you are not new here, you know my love for this author and how basically if I can't include a book of hers in every video I make, then I don't even know what I'm doing with my life. But this is her first step into that historical fiction genre, and I am so excited to see what she does with it. She is one of the most brilliant authors I have personally ever read. When I read 9000 Hellbent, like those books became my personality on a level I didn't even know existed from just simply reading a book. And again, the fact that she's doing this historical fiction setting with magic involved, it's just like, I can't even wait. I can't even wait to see what she's able to do with it. And because Ninth House was very much that magical realism setting, I feel like this is going to give that same vibe. So not only do you have the magic, but it feels like it's being done in a world that you could be existing in at this point in time. So I am so excited to get my hands on that one. And my husband pre-ordered that one for me from Waterstone, so I have that edition coming. Don't know when that's going to arrive, but I am going to try to get this in during April, and I'm so excited. I can't wait. And last but not least on my list is Sweet Bean Paste by Durian Sukagawa. This is a translated novel from Japanese and a very short, transformative story from what I've read about it. This year, I have kind of started dipping my toe into more translated novels, and more specifically Japanese translated novels. And what I have learned from these books so far is that they are tiny with a big punch of life. And I love that so much. They leave me broken. They leave me wondering. They leave me healed in ways that I didn't know literature could do for me. They're just a different type of novel. And if you've read any translated works, I feel like you probably know what I mean. So in this book specifically, we follow our main character named Sentaro, who has a very troubled past. It sounds like he's dealt with drugs and alcohol, and now just lives his days working in a confectionery shop making sweet bean paste for pancakes. It sounds like he might be stuck in this hamster wheel of time where days are just kind of coming and going, and he doesn't know exactly what direction he wants to go in with his own life. As he's working at the shop, an elderly woman named Toku starts working alongside him, and she comes with her own history and her own story. So it sounds like with her now working at this shop alongside Sentaro and this friendship that blooms between the two of them, they both start to learn from each other and face some dark parts of their past and use this friendship to kind of move forward in their life. This novel sounds like it's going to be absolutely gripping and kind of heart-wrenching in the way where it's going to discuss topics like loneliness and dark history that maybe some of us haven't ever had to face before, but also what we can overcome and how we can move forward in life with the support of friends and loved ones surrounding us. Also, another trope that is very common in Japanese novels is the talk and use of food as something comforting and something to kind of help learn from and grow from, which is honestly a narrative I didn't even know that I was missing in writing until I started reading about it. It's very charming and very heartwarming, and honestly, I am so excited to see what I can learn and take away from this book. Well, there you have it, my friends. Everything that I would like to try to read in the month of April. We have, I believe, 6 books officially on the list, which is similar to what I did in March, and March ended up being an absolutely great reading month for me. I will have a wrap-up coming of that shortly as well, but I do tend to be somewhat of a mood reader, so I'm finding that adding between like 4 and 6 books on a TBR is just the right amount. So if something isn't striking me, or I'm just simply not in the mood for something I put on the TBR, I can kind of pick something else up and shift things around and get back to it, or just, you know what, fly by the seat of my pants, because I do tend to go rogue from time to time.
Sorry, not sorry.
With that being said, if you liked this video, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button because it always helps a girl out. And if you want to make sure that you don't miss any of my upcoming TBR videos or my monthly wrap-ups or my vlogs that I release on a weekly basis, go ahead and hit that subscribe button too. Also, I would love to know if you have read any of these books or what you plan to read in the month of April. What do you have on your TBR? Anything good you think I should know about? Drop that in a comment below as well. As always, it has been an absolute blast, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next one.